You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Leibowitz. Mark Pellegrino has left the building for today. Luckily, we have Jim Valiant here to sort everything out, all the day's news and everything else. As far as the rational egoist goes, you will very soon be seeing a great episode from James and I where we discuss the chapter Man from OPAR. That's, I think, very, very good.
It's us at our best, Michael. I mean,
Yes.
My gosh, I really thought that was a great conversation.
It was fantastic. So that should be coming out later today or tomorrow. I just did a great episode of Self-Made Soul this weekend. At least I thought it was wonderful. I was there alone, so maybe that's why I think it was so wonderful. But we've got, I had originally canceled Everyday Ethics for today. That is back on at 2:30. I will be doing it. I've just right now informed Persephone, so maybe she's not thrilled about that. But either way, that's what we will be doing. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world. But Jim, the first thing I want to talk about is the birthday of Ayn Rand. And I'm just going to let you go. So go.
Today marks the 121st anniversary of the birth of Miss Ayn Rand, Mrs. Ayn Rand O'Connor, as she always legally called herself. But she was born Alyssa Rosenbaum in St. Petersburg, Russia, in February of 1905. And this year will mark the 100th anniversary of Ayn Rand's arrival in the United States. Now, Ayn Rand would want us to focus only on her work. She wrote astonishing material. She once said, if you want to know anything about me, it's really focus on my work. That's where you'll get to know me. And surely her novels, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, by the time she'd fully reached her philosophical and gotten her literary voice and reached her complete system of philosophy, those novels, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, will live forever. They are perhaps the greatest American novels ever written by perhaps the greatest philosopher since Aristotle. And it sounds like hyperbole, but I honestly don't think that's the case after a very careful study of the history of philosophy myself. But I think just since it's her birthday, let's consider her life, because in my view, she was also one of the most astonishing witnesses to the 20th century. She survived the Bolshevik Revolution when she was a young woman living in Russia, witnessing some of the opening battles with her own eyes. She fled to America when she was 21 years old, a woman alone in the 1920s who barely spoke the language, determined to become an artist in that new language. And within 20 years, she's writing a New York Times bestseller, being praised by the New York Times Book Review as an American classic. That she was selling the movie rights to Warner Brothers, too, to make a Gary Cooper movie. So she achieved this remarkable success. But more than that, she struggled through the Depression. She, what can I tell you? She wrote a novel during World War I and or World War II, and some of her favorite fan letters came from soldiers reading it overseas. She interviewed the inventors of the atomic bomb back in the mid-1940s. She wrote the screenplay to an Academy Award-winning movie even before The Fountainhead. She testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee. She witnessed the launch of Apollo 11, which first put men onto the surface of the moon. She witnessed it live and she became friendly with one of the Apollo astronauts. She wrote social commentary in the volatile 1960s and 70s. She was at the swearing in of Alan Greenspan at the White House in the 1970s. Now, this woman just was a remarkable witness to the events of the 20th century, without any doubt about it. And she integrated her experience with her ideas in a way. I mean, when you read The Fountainhead, you will discover a hero unlike any that had been conceived in literature before, a new kind of hero. And they're exquisitely beautiful novels. And I just have to say, if you have not read any of the major works of Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, look, 10 years before Orwell, before the revelations about the Holocaust and Stalin became well known to the world, she was writing a book called Anthem, taking down all forms of dictatorship, the eugenics kind of Nazi type, attacking racism in the 1930s, as well as the communist kind. And she was writing a dystopian novel that had the dictatorship changing language 10 years before Orwell's 1984. Here was a woman of astonishing vision. And it's not that I agree with every single thing she ever said, by no means, but for philosophers and novelists as they go, you can't do better than Ayn Rand. So happy birthday, Miss Rand. I am grateful and remain grateful. I don't believe that her spirit lingers on and that I believe in a supernatural world.
I was just going to say that.
Let me just say because she lives on in me. So let me just say to my inner Ayn Rand, happy birthday and thank you forever. Thank you above all the teachers that I've ever had. I never knew her, never met her, but above and beyond. Now, I've had some great teachers. Pedagogically, live, it's got to be Leonard Peikoff, who's the best teacher I ever had. And he was her heir and major expositor. But Ayn Rand gave me more than any of the great contributors to human knowledge than any other figure.
So that was well said, Jim. Happy birthday, Ariana. Happy birthday to my friend Carlos. Happy birthday to Ayn Rand. Happy Groundhog Day.
Happy Groundhog Day.
Thank you, Robert Naser, for the $5 super chat. And you and Amy were wonderful on the show on Friday. Thank you, Katie, for the super sticker. And Jim, I first came across, I first came across Ayn Rand's name, but it didn't stick with me. I came across her name. I was taking a social ethics course in prison, and they were talking about the various types of ethics. And I remember there was the three that stuck out to me is they had rule utilitarianism, act utilitarianism, and egoism. And then under egoism, they had universal egoism, self-egoism, and there was one more. I don't remember what it was. But it was interesting because before I ever knew Ayn Rand, she was misrepresented in the social philosophy.
Right. She normally is.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I've never known, and there have been some misrepresented thinkers out there. Yeah. I have never known a writer who is more systematically misrepresented than Ayn Rand in the media. The left hated her because she defended capitalism. The right hated her because she was an atheist, and everybody hated her because she defended egoism. And she defended it in a very strident way. She said, ignore the way selfishness is normally used. We have to really think about this concept, selfishness, and if necessary, change the map on the way people understand self-interest. I worked as a DA for 18 years, and I was continuously told by cops and prosecutors and so forth that these are selfish people. And I would have to continuously point out to them, no, these thieves and murderers and thugs and drug addicts even, although I think drugs should be legal, these are among the most self-destructive people in our community. And you're calling them selfish? It's like Inigo Montoya in that Princess Bride movie. I don't think that word means what you think it means. So when it comes to our long-term, very few people actually think about what is in their actual long-term self-interest, because that is a discovery by itself, something that takes thought to just figure out. Most people don't even figure it out. Then what they confuse selfishness with is whim worship, going by the feelings of the moment or what they perceive as the needs of the moment in a totally unprincipled way. Miss Rand looked at it in an entirely different way, saying that if you call someone selfish and you really mean what you say, you're paying them the most profound compliment that you can. So let me say, Michael, you are among the most selfish human beings I know.
Well, awesome. Yeah, the way that this course misrepresented her, the one that sticks in my head, is it said that she neglected to support the Libertarian Party, which was carrying her ideas, into the political realm. So maybe she realized after all that it just wouldn't work out. And of course, later on, I found out what the issue was with the Libertarian Party. And then it was funny because a guy in my prison block told me I should read Ayn Rand, and I remember saying, that she actually was proven wrong, and because I'm just repeating what I had read in this social ethics course. But then I was reading this book called Triumph of Liberty by Jim Powell, and it featured 64 mini biographies of people that advanced liberty. And she was in there. And the way that he wrote about her and described her, I said, well, I've got to read this woman. And then I got the laissez-faire book catalog and, started ordering it. And what an impact the lady had on my life, through her own work, through Leonard Peikoff's work, through my friendship with you, my friendship with Mark. So yeah, you can't say enough about the legacy that she's left, about the impact that she's had. People will say to me, well, she hasn't really impacted things. And I'm just like, fuck you. She impacted me. Yeah.
And her impact, because her ideas were so radical and so fundamental, we can only expect it to take a long time. We're fighting a huge social inertia. And the more radical the idea, the longer it takes to sink. So I just remind people that it's earlier than you think. All these liberals who say, well, look, it's Trump represents, or the modern Republicans represent Ayn Rand's philosophy. It is the Republican Party has gotten further and further and further away from anything. Ayn Rand criticized Barry Goldwater in the '64, but everything that's transpired in the Republican Party since has only been a downhill slide. So yeah, Ayn Rand has had precious little actual impact, if any, on politics. Now, she did have followers who did work for Nixon and Reagan, students of hers, friends of hers, and one of them helped get rid of the draft in the 1970s. So, I mean, let's take our little victories where we can. But there's been no philosophical, and that's what it really takes. We have to change the political culture. We have to change the political culture, and that is a monumental task. So it's early, as she used to say, it's earlier than you think. Leonard Peikoff, after reading Atlas Shrugged in 1957, or actually you read it in manuscript before that, but as it was coming out, frankly, and when it was all done, he said, "That's it. The culture's cooked. It's all. What do any of us need to do? The world is fixed. Atlas Shrugged has been published." Ayn Rand herself had a giggle over that and said, "Oh no, Leonard, everyone from all sides are going to attack me, and it is earlier than you think." And if that was so then, it's less so now. We have a whole lot. We have academics and PhDs and we have a division of the American Philosophical Association, which is the Ayn Rand Society. Now, don't tell me we haven't made progress, both in having serious academics who know how to articulate it and in terms of the change it's made in ordinary people's lives, like yours and mine. So thank you, Ayn Rand.
Thank you, Jenna Kleem, for the $5 super chat. Very much appreciated. Jim, I forgot my water. So I'm going to go get my water. And while I'm grabbing my water, I want you to explain two things. What does it mean by it's early? What do you mean when you say it's earlier than we think? And in what ways has the Republican Party shifted from where they were when Rand wrote? And by the way, in, 1965, maybe, she wrote Conservatism and Obituary. So, Jim, just expound on those two things. Let me grab my water because I forgot it like a dunce because I wanted to make sure the microphone was right. And by the way, audience, I did figure out the microphone. It is working now. Everything is good. I'll be back in like a minute.
Well, it's earlier than you think, because when you look around you today, the ideas, in one sense, it's good because, in effect, the intellectuals on both the right and the left, and philosophy itself, which is where the action is. If you're going to change a culture, you need to change its most fundamental ideas, and those are philosophy. The controversial ideas of a philosopher of one generation will become the so-called common sense of the next. And philosophy is pretty much bankrupt. philosophers in my lifetime have basically confessed they're a useless topic. They really don't provide you any real guidance in life. Ayn Rand, of course, believed exactly the opposite, that philosophy was the most important subject. Being the most fundamental and abstract, it has the biggest impact on everything else. I mean, everything else in culture. The way we understand science, whether we do science, art, you can just go right through the entire gamut of culture. Philosophy is by far the most important topic. But to make philosophical headway is also the biggest challenge to make. If I make a discovery in, engineering or medicine, or if I make a discovery in any other science, it's much more easy to understand it, grasp it. A philosophical change is the hardest change to make, and one you cannot expect to have impact overnight. Ayn Rand understood this. But, has the Republican Party, the important part of what you say, has the Republican Party changed? They have become systematically less committed to the original founding ideas of America with every passing decade, as long as I've been alive. At one point, they actually defended the idea that capitalism is part of America. I mean, by capitalism, private property rights. And by capitalism, I don't mean protecting certain businesses with regulations or subsidizing. It's not government for business or against business. It's government out of business, a separation of economics and state, just like and basically for the same reason that we have a separation of church and state. And so in that sense, have you seen the government keeps getting bigger and bigger? Republican arguments keep getting weaker and weaker. This latest brand of Trump people have basically turned the Republican Party in what used to be thought of as, the labor type Democrat position against immigration, for tariffs. I could go on. These people wouldn't know economics or capitalism if, bashed them over the head. So the Republican Party in particular has gotten much farther away from any understanding of capitalism, much less a principled understanding of rights. No, rights, your rights versus these guys' rights. You pit rights into conflict. Rights must form an integrated unity. And if you don't see rights as an integrated unity, you don't understand rights. If your free speech rights come at the expense of my freedom of religion rights, you're misunderstanding the whole concept of rights. And so that has only increased as well. So it's not, people say, well, she's the mother of libertarianism in a way, because she gave moral arguments, not merely brilliant economists, I think, have long since put to bed the superiority of the free market. But even that understanding has declined. More radically, Ayn Rand defended the profit motive. She defended individualism. And that's where the action is in defending capitalism. And do you see any signs that the Republican Party has developed an increased understanding of individualism and its role and what capitalism really is? No. We're moving further and further away. And besides, what they call civil rights and economic liberties are connected. So is it surprising that Donald Trump is pushing the envelope against your civil rights, pushing your political prosecutions of his enemies? So no, when you don't understand rights, even economic rights, Mr. Trump, which you don't, it will, I believe it's perfectly expectable that you'll see a decline in civil rights and a failure to understand things like free speech altogether, and the limits of government and the limits of law enforcement. He does not see that at all. If you take him at face value, what he says, he apparently thinks that he has an unlimited power. One of the most disturbing things he ever said, substantively, was in the wake of the 2020 election. When an election is stolen, first of all, there's no real evidence that any election shenanigans change the result. He lost the 2020 election, as far as any objective observer can see. But he says if there's a stolen election, we can, in effect, suspend the Constitution. When a president of the United States can let those words escape his lips, America as an idea is in deep trouble. I don't want to say RIP, stick a fork in it, it's all gone, because humans have free will. There still may be, we still have free speech. We still have enough freedom to get better ideas out there, but we've got a big uphill battle still ahead of us. So, and that's what I mean by earlier than you think. And just observe the Republican Party. They're growing more and just like the Democrat Party. They're growing more and more authoritarian. There is what I call this fascist convergence, where both sides don't give a hill of beans about the Constitution, where both sides don't understand what if the Democrats can come out for censorship and Republicans can come out for anti-capitalist economic policy. Tell me, Michael, what's left of America?
Well, this morning I saw a post where Jesse Ventura, who I will always know as Jesse the Body Ventura because I'm a wrestling fan, but he said in effect that this past election, the American people had the choice to vote for the Constitution or vote for a criminal, meaning Donald Trump. And I said, no, this is just not true. It's just false, the idea that voting for Kamala would have been a vote for the Constitution. It's just not true. I would never in my life have voted for Donald Trump. No freaking way. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden Kamala Harris is transformed into Antonin Scalia.
Oh, Trump violating. Oh, God, no.
You know what I mean?
Quite the opposite. She would have appointed, justices who really would be pushing Democrat policy, whatever they would make a hash out of existing constitutional law principles to get to cut a road to whatever policy they want. But you and I have had debates about conservatives, but justices. But I'll give you this much: the Republicans this much. At least the conservative justices don't want to totally make a hash out of the Constitution, right. And they would try to stick to the plain meaning of the words to some extent and to existing precedent, even bad, in my view, existing precedent on many things, long-standing precedent. But look, Biden, what he was going to do is cancellation of student loans, for example, billions of dollars without going to Congress. Totally unconstitutional. The Supreme Court whaps him back and he keeps trying to do it. So yeah, Trump is pushing the envelope on unconstitutional behavior, but Biden was. And this is what I mean. Biden engaged in political prosecutions of his enemies. Well, so did Obama and Nixon to a certain extent. And now Trump is doing it even worse. Trump is now even upping the ante. So we keep getting more and more and more authoritarian with every step, with every president, less and less constitutional, less and less of what America really meant to men like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and even Abraham Lincoln. And any comparison of Donald Trump to those men, in my view, is I'm an atheist. I'm a world famous atheist, and I don't believe in the mystic or the supernatural. But some things are sacred. Things of this world are sacred to me. And if anyone compares Donald Trump to those men, says he's the greatest president we ever had or something, that is sacrilege to me to think that man has the ethical character of George Washington, the intellectual brain pans of James Madison, or the principled defense of liberty that Thomas Jefferson did. It's sick. Anyway, in my view.
I like the shot across the bow there, Jim.
I don't want to name names and piss people off, but I made my point in substance.
You did. You
probably the better way to go, right?
Yeah.
Make your point in substance.
You may be right. If it were me, I would have named names because that's that's my personality. But I will respect your desire to not name names. And I'm looking here and I'm noticing that I need a haircut, and I'm trying to wait until I get paid, until I get this taken down. I'm going to blame Persephone for what's occurred too over the last couple of days with me. Evidently.
So your mistreatment of yourself is this poor woman on another continent's fault.
No, not in regard to the haircut. It came up in the Self-Made Soul episode. Oh, look at this. Robert Naser with $5 super chat. Thank you, Robert. The only man never to be redeemed is the man without passion. Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. Thank you, sir. So this topic came up during the Self-Made Soul of thirst tweeting, Jim. So I have heard the term thirsty before, and I just thought it meant trying to get attention. I didn't know, I was unfamiliar with this term. And I ultimately just wanted to make a point about people that crave the attention from others. But Persephone kept pushing me and making fun of me because I didn't know the specific word thirst tweet. Now,
I don't. What is this concept?
I'm going to tell you in a second.
Okay.
Then
I share that ignorance.
yeah. Then I get a DM message explaining to me what thirst tweeting is on Twitter. I go into what the hell is this? Instagram, and I see, oh, somebody has included you in their story, and I'm thinking, oh, that's nice, right? So I go and look in there, and it says, trying to explain thirst tweeting to an adult man. Not going to happen. Mocking
I think
me.
they were womansplaining something to you.
Yeah. Ian Gilmore says this is not a topic, a concept you need. Thirst tweeting is ultimately trying to garner sexual attention from somebody, often in an exaggerated, humorous way. But I just thought it meant trying to get attention. But that's what I wanted to talk about anyway, was the craving for attention or trying to gain validation through attention. But it was ultimately all Persephone's fault. She made a big, big deal about it, and it really wasn't a big deal. And, you know, a lot of the problems, I think, can be traced back to Persephone. That's all I'm going to say.
You bust balls regularly. You're a professional ball buster. And if she busts your balls a bit, I'm just saying, you know,
if I'm professional, can I get paid if I'm the professional?
Well, you know, I mean that metaphorically. But the point is, you do it regularly, routinely, and as a matter of habit. So if a little comes back at you, sir, just expect it.
Just expect it. You know, I also saw this thing about paid agitators, and it occurs to me this might be my career. Right? I will go out there and fuck with everybody. If you're going to pay me, oh my God, I will go out there and break their balls.
Violate other people's rights.
You don't have to do that.
Don't get violent, my friend.
No. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that.
Okay.
I could stand on the sidelines and I would drive them crazy. I once told the correctional officer, I said, do you realize that with your level of incompetence, you are not employable at McDonald's? Do you understand that? I mean, like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah.
Finally, he said, will you just get away from me?
Yeah. You know, get a job in a factory or just work as a sales clerk in a bookstore. I've had both of those jobs when I was younger. I mean, you'll learn what really it takes to do something real, productive, competent, provide a value in this world, and get compensated for it. But these people who work for government couldn't, you know, get a job as a street sweeper in most cases. Come on.
Yeah, the one time, Jim, I ever in my life attended a protest. I attended one, and it was about the right of parents over their children's education. I can't remember exactly what it was. And there were some. I was with the right wingers on this one, and there were left wing protesters, you know, counter protesters. And I got to tell you, I went over and tried to have a conversation with them.
Oh,
and I wasn't rude or mean. I just said, you know, excuse me, I was interested because I wasn't all in on what the people that I was with were saying. There were things about them that I disagreed. So I went over to talk, and they just were nasty. Get away from me. You get out. And I'm like, oh, wow, not very nice. I didn't do anything to you.
That's incredible that they would go out of their way like that at you. I mean, my God. But that's it. It's this moral superiority. They can't even define what their standard of values is, much less have a consistent approach to value and virtue. So it's not as though they're ethical philosophers, and yet they have this religious, dogmatic, self-righteous attitude. You know, I once, when I was a deputy district attorney, I once wanted to go see a speech by the economist George Reisman that was at a local university. But there were these protesters who had a phalanx of yelling, screaming, and they were trying to prevent people from actually getting in because they said, what you're going to hear inside is racism. And it's like, what? This guy's attacking racism. That's an essential part of his speech. And I happened to be going in with an African-American colleague of mine from the DA's office, but he had been an Army Ranger, and he was like 6'3", solid muscle, badass. I wanted to just go in and get out without any problem. No, he stopped. He talked to him. He said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And it was just one of the classic moments of my life to see a badass African American dude taking on these university hoodlums trying to prevent people from hearing a lecture that was actually anti-racist. I don't know the crazy world we're living in, but that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, in their view, if you don't favor handouts, affirmative action, and government violating people's rights to benefit some people, then you are a racist.
A racist, I guess.
So I also, Jim, I sent you this article by a guy named Tarnell Brown, who I've never before heard of, and it's in Econ Lib. I guess it's a magazine, but it's about the labor shocks that are going to result from mass deportations. And I thought the article was very well written. It was actually endorsed by, was David Henderson, was he a professor of yours at some point?
No, he wasn't, but I'm very familiar with his work.
Yeah, he actually endorsed
so much of his work very useful and well written. So
Mario Rizzo was your professor, right?
Mario Rizzo, Israel Kirzner was my favorite economics professor.
Okay, now you're just rubbing it in. You were supposed to laugh. I guess that didn't work. It didn't land.
Okay, yeah, I was rubbing.
Was my timing off? What happened?
With humor, timing is everything. You need to get the timing of Groucho or Bob Hope down. You know what I mean?
And Persephone's just I'm seeing her below doing her hair, flipping her head, and everything else. But either way,
when a woman plays with her hair, you know what that means.
Yeah, she's flirting with me, trying to get my attention. I don't, whatever. It happens a lot. I've learned this now from these thirst tweets that are directed.
Obviously, are there thirst looks? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. It's all very new to me.
This is a new concept.
Kids say the darndest things. Either way, what I thought this article was very good. The things that he brought up. What did you think?
We need more immigrants. The economy thrives with more immigrants, and especially when you look at the declining. In America, we have flat or negative fertility over the last few decades, and that is not good for the economy. We have a visa system, we have a green card system that is obscene. You have to go through a Byzantine maze. They have all kinds of ridiculous restrictions. Peaceful, law-abiding people should be embraced with open arms, because the more people we have, the more producers we have, the more consumers we have. So just use a little economic, basic logic, people. Immigration as such is good for the economy. And when you have net negative migration to the United States, it is going to have a net negative impact on the economy. It's a pretty simple calculation here, people. So we should embrace legal immigrants. Trump is not only trying, they sell it as we're going after the worst of the worst and is only criminal aliens. Well, wait a minute. How about on the other side? How about perfectly law-abiding people who want in this country? You've made it nearly impossible for them to engage in legal immigration. So between the deportations and between this making it impossible for decent people to come in, what we have is net negative migration to the United States. And I'll tell you, that's going to be a net negative to our economy. I don't know how else to put it.
I learned from the aforementioned George Reisman in his monumental work, Capitalism, a treatise on economics. And I used to joke with people. It was a joke in prison. I would tell people, hey, you want to read about economics? I got this great book for you to read. And they would say, yeah. And then, you come out with this thing and it's like, it's like
this mighty tome.
Yeah, it's 1,400 pages that are huge pages, very tiny print,
concrete detail. It's such elaborate detail that it's really this major thing is heavy. You could do a workout with it. If you had two of them, you'd get a good
I have. I put it in the weight bag. But either way, and he talked about. He gets from the Austrians because his two teachers were Ludwig von Mises and Ayn Rand. You talk about a lucky guy, Jesus.
Yeah.
But he talks about psychologically hold the money supply constant. And if you think about if you hold the money supply constant, so there's not an influx of money, because if there is, you're just going to have inflation anyway. So if you hold the money supply constant and you get rid of all this low skilled labor, that a lot of the immigrants take up, farm work, construction, things of that nature. Now you've got a shortage in these areas, which is going to drive up the price. So now the price of that goes up. Where's that money going to come from? It's got to come from somewhere, likely going to come from more skilled labor. So you're now going to be dropping their rates down. Or you're going to end up with less of a product because you don't have the same productive capacity. You end up with less of a product. What happens? The price of that product goes up. It's economic illiteracy, in my view, Jim, for the people that make these arguments about immigrants are bad for the economy. It's just freaking dumb.
Yeah, it really is. You know, on the economic side, you've got David Henderson and George Reisman, and any sensible economist would tell you that immigration is a good thing for the economy. Ayn Rand, the one comment she made in a question and answer period about immigration was some dude who said, hey, as an American citizen, I've got a right to this job. And isn't it selfishness? Isn't it egoism if I keep immigrants out? You know, kind of like these contemporary libertarians like Dave Smith or something, making some absurd argument of we're here first, therefore we have the right to the jobs here. Ayn Rand took it on ethically. She said, no, dude, you do not understand egoism. You do not have some right over some immigrant to some job. You're totally misapplying egoism. Her complaint was, that is a poor ethical argument against immigration. So in my view, it is neither moral nor economically practical. And the two go together when you understand them properly. And I'm not a utilitarian, and I'm not a deontologist, but I do think a morally principled approach is actually the one that's going to result in more net prosperity. But the point is, morally and legally, it's wrong. We will all economically benefit from immigration. And by the way, you don't have a right to that job, my friend, just because of the accident of you being born here. I have a right to employ the most competent, the most efficient, the guy I want to employ. The employer
or the lady, Jim, or the lady.
I don't mean to be sexist. You're right. The guy or gal, man or woman of your choice. So what about your right to that job? No, sir. How about the employer's right to employ whatever guy he wants to employ? As long as he's not a criminal or a terrorist or something. So the point, is that net immigration is morally good. It is and economically good. America has been so enriched, and we were talking about Ayn Rand's birthday. I mean, you think of the 20th century. Now, it's because of the horrors, in large part, of the 20th century totalitarianism. But we got people like Albert Einstein to move to the United States. We got Ludwig von Mises to move to the United States. Ayn Rand fled from Soviet Union. America has been a beacon, a place where the oppressed minorities of Europe and Asia could come to find a better life and to improve their own lives. And America has been the net beneficiary of immigrants. So many of the greatest American achievements, whether it's Andrew Carnegie, I could go down a whole list, but America has been so enriched economically and culturally by immigrants. And I would start the list with Miss Ayn Rand on her birthday.
Speaking of her birthday, G.L. Wordsmith says Happy Rand's Day, of course, because it's Ayn Rand's birthday. Jenna Kleem says define criminal. I will tell you what I mean when I use the term criminal, because there is an abundance of different definitions and that sort of thing. When I say criminal, what I'm referring to is the distinction. Now, I was just going to break Jim's balls for using words that people didn't understand, like deontological and utilitarian. And now I'm going to do this. So in classical theory of law, there's two types of crimes: malum in se and malum prohibitum. Malum in se refers to crimes that are crimes in and of themselves, whereas malum in prohibita are crimes that are made such by law. I'm not interested in that. When I say criminal, I'm talking about people that habitually violate the rights of others.
That's it. Violating the rights of others is what I mean.
Yes.
So
that's
if you're engaged in physical force or violence against a person, if you're stealing or damaging their property, but it has to be a violation of their rights against their person or property, I don't believe in drug laws. I don't believe in prostitution laws. I don't believe in gambling laws. I don't think those things are necessarily a good idea. It's not because I morally approve of the way people use those things, but it's not violating anybody's rights. Get those damn laws off the books. I do not believe in them. They are immoral, and they can only make what may already be a personal tragedy in someone's life 1,000 times worse, and turn it into a bloody mess, and make a corruption out of our law, and enrich organized crime. Because let's face it, it's drugs and gambling and prostitution that organized crime makes their money on. So all we do is we're counterproductive with those kind of laws. But if our laws are exclusively focused on rights violations, that is to say, violations of force against the person or property of another person, that's what I mean by crime.
And what I mean to say before I delete him and block him, William Swig, you are a petty, ignorant, malicious little bitch. That's all you are. You are an ignorant bitch. And you will never be anything but a secondhand bitch that tries to bring down other people to make yourself feel better. You are a little bitch. So with that, I will block
I'm glad
you.
I missed the comment. Yeah, block his ass. I mean,
did.
He's pretty irrational. In all of my experience, the man misrepresents
I did block
what
him.
people. He misrepresents what people say, including me, and he's obviously.
Yeah.
I don't like to psychologize, but I think there's something wrong with that guy.
Yeah, I'm going to do now what Jim doesn't like to do. All right? So, Mr. Harriman, if you happen to be watching, Mr. Harriman, you who came up to me on social media and asked me if I had the guts to tell Leonard Peikoff that I disagreed with him. First of all, yes, I do, as I did when I sat next to him. That's the first thing. But I'll tell you what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't go on a podcast with guys who talk about Dr. Peikoff the way that guy just did. And yes, you could point out that I was on his show long ago. Yes, I was, but I did not know what he was. The only other time I interacted with him was to utterly destroy him in debate. Right? And even that was a mistake I shouldn't have done. But you, sir, were very friendly with them. So this is what I would suggest for Mr. Harriman, who says to me that I should tell Leonard that I disagree with him about Trump. Why don't you go and tell him how friendly you are with those who malign his wife, Mr. Harriman? That's what you should do.
And the other thing is that Leonard Peikoff is perfectly willing to be friendly with people of a range of opinions, including you, sir. He knows about your criticism of him, and he's still willing to interact with you. I know that personally. And by the way, people looking at my podcasts over the last 9 years, I defy you to say that I'm shy about my Trump criticism. The other thing is I argue with Leonard Peikoff about immigration. I argue with Leonard Peikoff about all kinds of stuff. It goes down a list from immigration. I must say some of it are pretty minor, little garbage. But Leonard Peikoff doesn't like you if you don't have an independent opinion.
Yeah.
If you aren't willing to state what you really think and are able to defend it. That's what Dr. Peikoff doesn't like. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. And just in recent months, I've had arguments with Leonard Peikoff. So fuck you.
There you go. And I was just thinking, well, maybe he could sue me for slander, but he should remember truth is always a defense to libel.
Yes, it is.
Or slander also.
Yes, yeah. Thank goodness.
Yes, thank goodness. And I'm very confident I don't have to worry about Swig taking a swing at me. I think I'll be okay. So on from the drama, the troll drama. To will Republicans fall for inflationary populism? Now, I don't believe that the author mentions this, but of course, the idea of inflationary populism, if I'm not mistaken, goes back at least to William Jennings Bryan. Gave his speech for the
The Cross of Gold speech.
Yes, the cross. Mankind will not be crucified on a cross of gold. Big silver guy. Silver guy was just a synonym for inflationary
Right.
policies. And the Republicans, they were always, arguing against inflationary policies. They embraced the economics of Mises, Hayek, Milton Friedman, even, Ayn Rand, Alan Greenspan, but no more. Now, now the Donald wants to see massive increases in the money supply. Of course, he says what he wants is a lower interest rate, but what that means is more money in the economy, cheaper credit, more money, higher prices, distortions.
He wants the quick fix sugar high of that
Yes.
little boom that happens when you do flood the economy with money. Now, mind you, as the money spreads out through the economy, it's going to have an increasingly negative impact on the purchasing power of ordinary people. And that's the thing. If anyone says, more money, looser money, what they're saying is rip off the ordinary consumer, impose an inflation tax on the whole economy, and so we can finance our increased government spending. That's what all this crap is about, okay? And it is, my view is government manipulation of the money supply is the moral equivalent of a counterfeiter running some, counterfeiting operation in his basement. Only it has 1,000 times worse consequences because it's done legally and on a mass scale. So everything that makes counterfeiting wrong makes the Federal Reserve and the Currency Department at the Treasury Department wrong. It is, and he has been jawboning the Fed to lower interest rates, and he, if necessary, he will file criminal charges against the existing Fed chair. I can't find any real basis, any real precedent for the charges that are going against Powell. And isn't it funny how, because he has an economic disagreement with Powell, now I think the Supreme Court is likely to, they've been increasing the president's power to remove executive officers. But I think that in this case, the Supreme Court is going to say, no, the president can't just willy-nilly dismiss members of the Federal Reserve Board. And furthermore, but his new appointment apparently thinks that Trump's other economic policies are so wonderful that we can loosen monetary policy. But there can be nothing that erodes our economy worse than inflation. We have to do double time to increase productivity in order to just keep up with this insane inflation of the money supply. It is a ripoff of all savers and to the benefit of debtors. Now think about that. And where does increase in productivity come from? Capital investment. And where does capital investment come from? In effect, savings. And so as you're ripping off savers, you're long-term destroying the productivity of the economy, increases in real wealth. It is the most stupid, counterproductive policy. But of course, since ancient Roman times or before, rulers have loved to just shave off a little of the money, debase the currency, pass these legal tender laws so they can force their funny money down our throats and in effect rip people off so that in ancient Roman times they could engage in their welfare warfare state. Because, Romans were all about conquest, slavery, and providing bread and circuses to the masses of the city of Rome. So they ran what Murray Rothbard, I think, properly called a welfare warfare state 2,000 years ago. And how did they finance it? Through currency debasement. This is as old as the hills, ladies and gentlemen.
Let me just, yes, Jim, you of course are correct. Evidently it is Troll Monday. So John Davis is in the chat and he's for some reason bringing up disparaging comments about Muslims. Mr. Davis, perhaps I would respect you a little bit more if you didn't hide behind a fake name while doling out your criticisms. And yes, Mr. Davis, I know who you are. I know that you live in my town, and I know that your initials are NP. And I think it's just very, very cowardly. If you're going to say something about people, then you should be willing to come forward and say it rather than making a fake profile.
Yeah, I hate that. People engaging in controversial debates, but hiding behind fake profiles.
Yeah, you're not courageous. It's not.
It just shows very low moral character, cowardice, lack of integrity. You're a
Yes.
fake, a fraud, and who should take
Yes.
you seriously?
Mr. Davis, you of course DM'd me and asked me to meet you for lunch one time. Perhaps I could bring a couple of my Muslim friends because I do have some, and you could tell them how you feel. I could tell you this: in prison, I argued with Muslims frequently about their religion. Face to face, engaged in intellectual combat with murderers. Because if I have something to say, I say it, and I don't make a fake profile to come on and criticize people. That's all. You, of course, I'm not going to kick you off the show. You haven't been disrespectful to me. I just, I really just don't like that. I don't. If you want to have anonymity, Jim, for whatever other reasons, I'm okay with it.
Around context.
Yeah, but
if you're
don't
gonna come
use it
on
as a
and get all-
shield.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a little icky. You know what I mean?
It lacks integrity. It's cowardice.
Yes.
What can I tell you? It's how I look at it. And on the face of it, it's really a kind of dishonesty. Because if you're going to engage like that and you don't reveal your real name, I mean, we're not talking about pictures of your pets or pictures of your family or whatever. I mean, I can understand not wanting people to know where you live, things like that for security purposes, not telling people where you have your gold. I can understand fully where you keep your guns. I can totally understand that. But if you're going to come on and make a political, attack people personally, engage in political debate, and you're hiding your who you really are, your identity, come on. Put your money where your mouth is. We have free speech in this country. Use it properly. I mean, I won't pass a law, but it makes me think this guy is really not a man of character.
I haven't hesitated to criticize Bosch Faustin, and I will continue to do so when I see the ridiculous things that he says. But at least he has the courage to say who he is.
Exactly.
He's not hiding from anybody, and I just that's just
his courage is remarkable. In fact, he
Yes.
was part of that draw Muhammad. And anyone drawing Muhammad, anyone who gets a fatwa against them, has personal courage. I mean, they could come after him, and that's serious business. But jihad. There are many Muslims in this world who do not believe in violence and are really friendly people. I'm on friendly relations with Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus. I really am. But I am, like I say, I reject religion. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in the supernatural. I don't use mysticism to figure stuff out. But on the other hand, if you're going to you can attack a philosophy in a serious philosophical way. What is wrong to do is to paint with broad strokes about whole groups of people. People are not statistics. On the other hand, do we face today a world of many, many, many Muslims? Is the culture in the Middle East medieval and savage? Yes, it is. And do people who even criticize, free speech is all about offending people. And if you can't offend people, you don't have free speech. And there are people in this world who, look at what they did to Salman Rushdie. There are Muslims in this world who are happy to take you out and kill you just because you've offended their Quran or their prophet. Well, that's not civilization. That is not free speech. No, my free speech means I get to offend religion, and I have offended religions, but I won't paint in broad strokes denouncing anyone just because they belong to a certain group. Individuals must be judged as individuals. Individuals are not statistics. Whatever your statistics say about Muslims and violence, I don't care. It will not help me when I assess Muslim X, who's standing right in front of me and is being perfectly civil and civilized to me.
Spot on, Jim. Not really much I can add to that.
Aren't I brilliant?
Yes.
Don't I just have these wonderful, pithy ways of putting things?
I think with your brilliance and good looks, you're going to be getting thirst tweets very, very, very soon.
I get
Hopefully not from William Swig.
Women wanting to be friends of mine on Twitter or Facebook, and I just have to ignore it because I know what's really going on. And I doubt most of those pictures are actually the woman who's trying, it's a complete stranger, trying to make friends with me on social media. Just color me skeptical.
Jim, I've gotten things that have from these women that have told me, are you aware that you can now gather up $500,000 free from the government, that they owe you this money, and they expect me to say no, and then I say yes, I've already got it.
Yes, I just got my check yesterday.
Yeah, I did. Thank you for asking. It's very nice
Thank
of you.
Yes.
We don't have much time, but there's an article
Sorry,
from.
I've been yammering on for a better
No. This has been good, and I'm not trying to tell this guy John Davis, and I didn't dox you. I didn't tell anybody who you were, even though I know. You're welcome to come to the show, but if you're going to come, I'm going to give my commentary on what you say. That's all there is to it. Jeffrey Singer's article in Cato, and he talks about the fundamental problem with Donald Trump's drive, or at least one of the biggest problems, to treat addiction is to conceptualize it as a disease. And Jeffrey Singer says this is a very big mistake, and he thinks that it would be much better, and I believe, is for full legalization. But what he says is, if we can't have that, it would be far better to not have the government involved in methadone treatment and stuff like that. Just allow practitioners to prescribe the medications. And something that he didn't mention, maybe he doesn't know, I don't know, but I know from when I was a kid, these methadone clinics are cesspools. This is people hang around there with drugs, trying to get, bring their drugs, everything else. It's not good to do it that way, whereas you could just have people go to their doctor, they get it, and they use it.
Man, I couldn't agree more. First, the concept of addiction as a disease. It's a bad habit, and habits, can feel, like, it's built into me. There's something about, and the worst thing is that, well, I've got the gene from my alcoholic grandfather, and therefore I'm, doomed. It's a view of yourself that kind of excuses your drinking, But guess what, folks? It's neither nature or nurture can make you pick up, a glass of whiskey. It may be hard to resist. You may be in a terrible habit, but guess what? Character can change. Your habits can change. You don't have to pick up that glass of whiskey, even in stressful moments. Your fate is not determined either by your gene. And if anyone on this planet proves that, Mr. Leibowitz, you are, the poster child of it. Anger issues, drug addiction to really serious drugs like heroin. Look at this guy. This guy can overcome all that. You can too.
Now I'm getting thirst tweets on X.
Now you're getting thirst tweets. But yes, you can overcome a difficult mental habit and a difficult behavioral habit to fix. It can be done. And it shouldn't be treated like this is built into you, like some, virus you've gotten or some genetic disorder you've inherited. That is the wrong way to approach the whole subject. Now, government, oh yeah. As a DA, I worked on a drug court and I worked with addicts. I also, as a DA, would I'd go out to the native reservations to bring law enforcement, so they could get all their minor warrants taken care of, to help them. And I would go to homeless shelters to do the same thing. Let's get all this, these little, niggling infraction and misdemeanor charges off your record and find some way to give you a fresh start. But when you go out to certain places where the homeless are and where the poor are, you really see the counterproductive effect of most government policy in this regard. My God, are we counterproductive with these methadone clinics? They are cesspools. These needle exchange programs, you're not helping them. You're not helping them. It's counterproductive. Even if that were your goal, you're not helping them. Now, in a world of AIDS, I'm not going to say my enemies are dishonest in this regard. In a world where hepatitis and AIDS can be transmitted through needles, the availability of clean needles may work. But what you're really doing is giving them clean needles so they can sustain the habit of being a junkie. So why doesn't the government just get the hell out of it? If people, I don't mean to sound cruel, but if people actually face the consequences, working in a drug court, I saw that people hitting bottom was kind of the reality they needed to be slapped in the face with. I don't want people to die. I don't want people to suffer injury. But, people would say, I've lost my job, I've lost my girlfriend, I've lost, I really feel sick. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. When they reach that point, that's the moment when you can really reach them. And if they didn't have the foresight to see that becoming a heroin addict wasn't going to mess with their life, what can you do? I can't do anything about it, and sure the hell the government can't do anything about it. We have to treat people as responsible, volitional agents. It's our view of humanity that conditions our view that the government needs to rush in and protect us from ourselves with all these stupid laws against drugs and gambling and prostitution. I could list a host of other laws.
All right. That takes us out, Jim. Now I need you to just give a capitalist thought of the day and we can wrap
And
up.
I'm going to build on that.
All right.
Thomas Jefferson said, if men are not fit to govern themselves, then have we found angels in the form of men, i.e. working for government, who are fit to govern us? No, government isn't the solution. And if you think humans are so flawed that they cannot govern and manage their own lives, then I wonder about your attitude that somehow some government policymaker is in a position to govern our lives. When Thomas Jefferson meant self-government, he didn't mean democracy. What he meant was individual liberty. Capitalism is the system of individual liberty that recognizes that no one can help you, no one can fix you. It's up to you to fix you, because human beings are moral agents capable of governing their own lives.
All right, Jim. Okay, the question to be answered on YouTube. Please, should the United States legalize all illicit drugs? That's the question. Go to YouTube and answer it. Should the United States legalize all illicit drugs? All right, we're out until tomorrow. I'm going to need you, please, people, go to YouTube, answer the question, like, share, subscribe the episode, and also tune in today, 2:30. We're going to be talking about disappointment and how to deal with it on Everyday Ethics. I promise you it will be a great show. And other than that, I believe Mark will be back tomorrow. He's going to get in his jet and fly it over wherever he's got to go. But we will be here tomorrow with more topics. Until then, check your premises. Peace.